Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about static web hosting in S3. So over here in the Orion papers, let's open up this section and let's talk about what's going on here. So Amazon S3 provides an option for low-cost, highly reliable web hosting service for static websites. And for static websites, we mean content that does not change frequently. This solution should not be used for a dynamic website. When enabled, static web hosting will provide you with a unique endpoint, meaning a URL, that you can point to any properly formatted file stored in an S3 bucket. Current supported formats include HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Amazon Route 53 can also map human-readable domain names to static web hosting buckets, which are ideal for DNS failover solutions, and I'll talk about that point in more detail in a second. But over here in the AWS console, let's take a look at how to actually enable web hosting on our bucket. So I'm going to go into our Orion Papers bucket here, and the first thing that I'm going to need is actually two documents, one being an index.html file and another one which will be our error.html file. So I have those two files prepared, so I'm going to go ahead and upload those now. First the index, and then I'll add another file, and I'll add the error. Okay, so I have index.html and error.html. So let me upload those. And these are both just two very small HTML files, one that says, hey, this is the index file, and the other one that says, hey, this is the error file. So now what I want to do is go over to Properties and click here on Static Web Hosting. I'm going to click to use this bucket as a static web hosting, and then I have to enter what I want my index document and my error document to be. Now, it doesn't have to be index.html or error.html, but those are the examples that AWS gives, so those are the file names that I use. But you can have this be any file name that you want. It could be mywebsite.html. It's just important that the index document will be the primary document that is pointed to, and the error document will be the secondary document that is pointed to if for some reason there is an error or S3 cannot find the index document. So here I need to type in the name of the actual object, which is in fact index.html, and the error document, which is error.html. And again, these can be any names that you want, just as long as you enter them in the correct space. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And then I'll go back into web hosting here because I do have to get my endpoint URL. So this is the URL that is provided to me, which will be the URL used to access these web documents. So if I open up a new tab here and paste this in, we should see that it should come up. Oh no, wait a second. I did get an error here. I got an access denied error. Now, why could that be? Well, let me show you exactly why here. If I save this again here and I go back to our objects and I click on index.html and go to permissions, there are no permissions for the public to be able to view these files. So even though I enabled static web hosting, I also need to make sure that I have the proper access granted on these files so that somebody can access them from over the open internet. So here now I want to click on everyone, click on read, and then just save it. Great, and now we see that for everybody, the object access is now set to read. So now if I come back up here and I refresh, we now see that the file is being displayed, so this is the static index.html file. So there we go. I've just set up static web hosting using an S3 bucket and an S3 object. But what about the error file? Well, we'll have to do the same thing. We'll have to go back out here, go to the error file, go to permissions, and again enable this, the object access to read for everyone. Save that. And now we see that under manage public permissions for everybody, object access has been set for read for everybody. So now if I come back up here and I refresh this again, we will see that I continue just to get this is the static index.html file. Because the S3 bucket is constantly finding the index.html file, it will never display the error.html file. But let's say that it gets deleted or corrupt. And in this case, what I'll do is I'll just force that. I'll just click on this and delete it. What I'm basically doing here is I'm forcing the S3 static web hosting to fail over to the error.html file. So now if I come back up here, hit refresh, we now see this is the error.html file. So this is a really nice solution for static web hosting, especially if you're looking for an extremely low-cost option for a website that is not going to have a lot of changing information. Also, and what I mentioned earlier, Amazon Route 53 can also map human-readable domain names to the static web hosting bucket, and this is great for DNS failover. So we're going to talk about this a little bit later in this course, but if we quickly switch over to our physical and networking layer, drill down into our VPC section, we do see here that Route 53, which is our DNS service, which will generally route traffic into our VPC and into our Elastic Load Balancer or to our EC2 instances. But what happens if this all goes down? What happens if we lose our application, if our servers crash? Well, we can always set up a static web hosting bucket within S3. And what can happen is if this goes down, DNS can always take traffic coming to our domain and route it to a static web page in our S3 bucket. And that could just be something as simple as saying, hey, we're sorry, our servers are overloaded right now, or we're experiencing technical difficulties. Please check back later. So instead of your customers getting an error not being able to access anything, at least they have a reliable source to receive some sort of an error message or static web page. So there are a lot of great uses and benefits of S3 for static web hosting, most of which is that it is extremely cheap and also extremely reliable. And with that, we will conclude this lesson. Thank you for watching. You may now move on.